Hello everyone. I have a difficult question for you, and it has haunted me since I started preparing this video. What is a miracle? Is it a joyful, unexpected event, a happy ending against all odds, or is it sometimes simply the act of surviving, of breathing one more time when all the laws of nature and medicine say it should be impossible? The moment of birth is supposed to be the most beautiful in human existence. It is wrapped in hope, promises, and unconditional love that has just been born. But for some families, this moment of joy turns into a silence of shock, a brutal encounter with a reality so rare and cruel that it takes your breath away. These are stories you will never read in fairy tales. These are heartbreaking realities of babies who had to fight from their very first second of life against conditions so extreme that they left seasoned doctors, professionals who have seen everything, absolutely speechless. Today, we are going to delve into the agony and, paradoxically, the incredible strength of 10 of these little warriors. I warn you, some images of their fight are unbearable, but it is vital to remember their courage. These are stories that remind us of the incredible fragility of life and the often tragic resilience of the human spirit. Hold on tight, because these stories will move you. Number 7. Heart Bear, Vanalope Hope Wilkins. We start directly with a case that, for me, is the very definition of defying death. Let me tell you about Vanalope Hope Wilkins, a little girl born in December 2017 at Glenfield Hospital in Leicester, UK. Imagine the ultrasound, a moment full of dreams, where the parents, Naomi Finley and Dean Wilkins, received the news that would crush anyone. Their baby suffered from ectopia cordis. Ectopia cordis is the impossible. It is when the heart develops entirely outside the ribcage. It is protected only by a thin layer of tissue, beating, visible, directly on the chest. It is a condition so rare that it affects less than 1 in a million children, and in almost all cases, death occurs within minutes of birth. The prognosis was so grim that doctors advised the parents to terminate the pregnancy several times. Think about that decision, that unbearable pressure. But Naomi and Dean refused to give up. They clung to that tiny possibility, to that desperate maybe. When Vanalope was born, the delivery room was a silent battlefield, prepared for immediate mourning. 50 members of the medical staff were there. Surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, all on high alert. And then, little Vanalope let out a cry. She was alive. That's when the unthinkable happened. The team launched a series of incredibly complex and dangerous surgical operations. The first step? Placing her heart, this fragile and exposed muscle, back into her chest cavity, using a protective mesh and her own skin. The risk of infection was colossal. Every heartbeat was a gamble, but she held on. 3 major operations were necessary to close her up. The word hope is in her name, Vanalope Hope Wilkins, and she honored that name. Her story reminds us that even when science says no, love and perseverance can sometimes snatch a tiny space for a yes. She became the first baby in the United Kingdom to survive after being born with her heart entirely outside her body. It is a story of survival that, even if it comes with a life of challenges ahead, will remain etched as a monument to the extraordinary resilience of the human body. Number 6. The World in Black, Renley Ice. The arrival of Renley Ice, born in Missouri in 2023, was a huge victory for her parents, Taylor and Robert, who had struggled for a year to conceive. The ultrasounds were all normal. The genetics were normal. Everything seemed perfect, until she arrived in the world and refused to open her eyes. At first, the nurses told Taylor that it was common, that newborns take their time. But hours passed, and Renley remained frozen. When the pediatrician leaned over her, there was that heavy silence, the kind that makes you nauseous. Taylor asked him with rising anxiety, "What's wrong? Are they small?" The doctor's answer was clinically brutal. "No, they are not there." Renley was born with bilateral anophthalmia, a condition caused by PRR12 haploinsufficiency. Simply put, she had no eyes, no eyeballs, no optic nerves, and not even enough eyelid tissue to open properly. There are fewer than 30 cases like hers recorded in the world. It is absolute rarity. Imagine the devastation of this mother. Waiting for her baby, imagining the color of her eyes, the moment she would look at her for the first time, and learning that she would never be seen by her child. That's not all. Tests revealed that Renley also does not produce cortisol, a vital hormone for managing bodily stress, adding an invisible internal danger to her blindness. Since then, the fight has been surgical for the development of her face. Doctors have to place spacers in her sockets so that the skull bones develop normally. The plan is to implant prosthetic eyes later, purely for structure and aesthetics, as she will never see. But in the midst of this tragedy, there is the light of Taylor and Robert fighting so that their daughter can live in a world she can only hear and feel. It is love fighting for a quality of life, even when the most fundamental sense has been stolen. Number 5. The Bent Man, Mahendra Ahiwar. Mahendra Ahiwar, born in Madhya Pradesh, India, faced a cruelty beyond comprehension. His physical condition made him the target of mockery and ostracism, even within his own village. He was born with congenital myopathy, an extremely rare and progressive muscular disorder. In his case, it weakened his neck muscles to the point where his head hung completely backward, at a 180-degree angle. This was such an extreme and rare presentation that doctors said they had never seen anything like it. For years, his world was upside down. He was confined to a chair. His parents had to carry him everywhere. They couldn't leave him alone. Neighbors called him cursed. He couldn't look his parents in the eye without twisting his body. Think about what that means for a child. Being unable to see the horizon, to eat without extreme help, to move, constantly being humiliated by the simple act of lifting his head. In 2016, Mahendra's story circulated around the world, and a surgeon in Delhi, touched by his fate, offered his services for free. An operation took place to implant a metal rod in his neck, straightening him. For the first time, Mahendra could sit upright. He could look at his parents and his future without being bent. He smiled in photos. He dreamed of opening a small shop, a new hope. But tragedy, once again, was not far off. Only 8 months after this operation that restored his dignity, Mahendra was at home. He had lunch, watched cartoons, coughed, and asked his mother to rub his chest. Another cough, a final effort, and he passed away. Doctors explained that his body was too fragile. His chest muscles were too weak. A simple infection or a cough could overwhelm his already weakened lungs and heart. Mahendra's mother, Sumitra, cried that she didn't want to let him go. Mahendra found rest, but only in death. It is a story that screams the injustice of life. Number 4. The Trap of Pain. Absence, Gabi Jingra. Here, we tackle a paradox. We spend our lives avoiding pain. But Gabi Jingra's story shows us that pain is, in fact, our most vital alarm system. Gabi, born in Minnesota, looked like a perfectly healthy baby, but her first year revealed the horror. She would fall and not cry. She would scrape her knees, remain silent. She gnawed on her fingers until they bled, showing no sign of discomfort. The diagnosis came: congenital insensitivity to pain with anhidrosis, CIPA. It is one of the rarest genetic conditions in the world. Gabi cannot feel pain, and she also cannot regulate her body temperature by sweating. It is a silent nightmare. Without pain, she didn't know she was hurting herself. She chewed her tongue and lips until the tissue was destroyed. Her parents had to pull out her baby teeth to prevent her from biting off pieces of herself. She rubbed her eyes so hard that she detached a cornea, requiring several surgeries to save what vision she had left. Imagine the terror of her parents. A fever becomes a vital emergency because her body cannot cool down. A simple game can cause a fracture they won't discover until much later. Her environment had to be purged of all sharp edges, and constant surveillance is necessary. Gabby, now older, has had to adapt to a life where she must consciously check her body for injuries. She follows a diet that allows her to chew with her gums because her teeth are damaged. Her story is a brutal reminder. What we perceive as a curse, pain, is in fact a blessing for survival. Number 3. A paper skin. Eleliana Ellie Campbell. If Gabby couldn't feel pain, Ellie Campbell knew only pain from her first second of life. Born in 2024 in Maine, Ellie was diagnosed with epidermolysis bullosa, EB, a rare and brutal genetic disease. Her skin, instead of being a protective barrier, peeled off like paper at the slightest contact. Holding her, dressing her, even the warmth of a bath could cause open blisters. Ellie suffered from the most severe form. EB affects about 1 birth in 50,000, but her form was the most critical. For these children, survival beyond the first birthday is rare. Her body was in a permanent crisis. Injuries opened faster than they could heal. Her mother described the daily ritual of agony, changing the bandages. She had to be wrapped like a mummy, knowing that every bandage removal would tear off a little more of her fragile skin. Changing diapers tore skin from her legs. Every hug was a risk of causing her harm. It is a pain we cannot even imagine. She fought, she smiled, she showed incredible resilience, followed by thousands of people on TikTok. But in April 2025, at only 10 months old, Ellie's little body gave out. She died in her parents' arms. Her mother said, with heartbreaking honesty, "I am glad she is not suffering anymore." Ellie's story is short, but it reminds us of the violence that genetics can sometimes inflict, and the sacrificial love of parents who endured everything for the good of their child. Number 2. 2 bodies in one. Rama Devi's baby. We end where nature reaches its most shocking level of rarity. The case that truly makes me wonder how existence is possible. In July 2024, in India, Rama Devi, 38, went to the hospital. The pregnancy was described as normal, but at delivery, the midwives and doctors froze. Instead of 1 face, they saw 2. When the body was fully delivered, the shock was total. The newborn had 2 faces, 4 arms, and 4 legs. It was one of the rarest forms of conjoint duplication ever seen. A severe form of polymelia caused by an embryo that began to separate but never fully detached. Usually, the weaker twin is absorbed very early. Here, the fusion created a single body with massive duplication. The newborn's condition was critical. The 2 faces struggled to breathe. The cries were weak. The body, with its internal organs not formed to support such duplication, was incapable of survival. In these extreme conjoint cases, survival is almost impossible. Only a few hours after birth, the baby's heart stopped. The devastation for Rama Devi and her husband was immediate. They had a name, clothes, dreams. Everything collapsed within hours of unimaginable tragedy. This case, so rare that even seasoned doctors had never seen anything like it, is a brutal reminder of how, sometimes, the genetic anomaly is so extreme, so incompatible with life, that even love and hope can do nothing. It is the most shocking end to a journey that should never have begun. Number 1. Subscriber topic. On the tip of her finger, Leia discovered a minuscule miracle. A sleeping baby, barely bigger than an ant. She held her breath, afraid to wake it. Where had it come from? Was it a dream or a gift from heaven? The tiny being smiled in its sleep, and a soft warmth filled her heart. Leia then understood that sometimes the greatest wonders hide in the smallest moments. fragile, silent, but infinitely precious. In the end, these stories are not just about suffering or medical rarity. They are lessons in pure humanity. Behind every statistic, every impossible diagnosis, there are parents who refuse to give up, doctors who push the limits of science, and above all, children who fought with a strength that even adults struggle to comprehend. So, what is a miracle? It may not be a divine light or a spectacular healing. Sometimes it is just one more heartbeat, a breath of life snatched from the impossible. It is the proof that even on the edge of despair, life still finds a way to say, I am here.